Hello, Mr. Gitu Yuwat. It's Wednesday, March 1st. This is Africa 54. Nigeria's ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu is declared winner of the disputed presidential election. We'll have a report. And in our technology segment, microfinancing is being hailed as a game changer in Africa. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho talks to Zambia's Chilufya Mutale, CEO and founder of Premier Credit in Kitwe, Zambia. All this and much more on today's Africa 54. We begin in Nigeria, where ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu has been declared winner of the nation's fiercely contested presidential election. The win secures the former Lagos governor his lifelong ambition of heading Africa's most populous democracy. Tinubu spoke after being declared the winner.
I take this opportunity also again to appeal to my fellow contestants to let us team up together. It is the only nation we have. It is one country that we must build together. We work together to put broken pieces together. We must work for the unity, happiness, and harmony.
That was Nigerian President-elect Bola Tinubu speaking. Ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu has been declared the winner of Nigeria's presidential election amid complaints over failings in the process and allegations of fraud. Here's David Doyle with more.
Ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu was declared the winner of Nigeria's disputed presidential election in the early hours of Wednesday morning. And he has, maybe unsurprisingly, been defending the integrity of the poll. According to the Independent National Electoral Commission, or INEC, Tinubu won 8.79 million votes in the weekend election.
Is hereby declared the winner.
Main opposition challenger Atiku Abubakar was tallied at 6.98 million votes. Peter Obi, an outsider popular with younger and urban voters, was on 6.1 million. Both Atiku's PDP and Obi's Labour Party have, again perhaps predictably, rejected the outcome. Heavily doctored and manipulated is how they described the results being declared at the National Collation Centre in a joint statement on Tuesday. Nigeria's election was meant to be its fairest and most open contest to date. Instead, it was marred by logistical and technological problems. They resulted in most polling units being unable to immediately upload results to INEC's website, undermining trust in the transparency of the process. Observer missions have criticised this as the result of poor planning. INEC has said it takes full responsibility for the problems and regrets any distress caused. But speaking in front of cheering crowds in the capital Abuja, Tinubu said he had been given a serious mandate. He said INEC had run a credible election, quote, no matter what anybody says, and that the reported problems were relatively few in number and were immaterial to affect the final outcome. As president-elect, Tinubu now faces a long list of national problems. That includes spreading insecurity, encompassing jihadist insurgencies, killings and kidnappings by armed gangs, and conflict between livestock herders and farmers. The country is also grappling with shortages of cash, fuel and power, as well as deeply entrenched corruption. Outgoing President Muhammadu Buhari had promised to fix those problems. Instead, he passes them to his successor, who Buhari congratulated as the best person for the job. Tinubu, the 70-year-old former governor of Lagos, has at times appeared frail in public, slurring his speech and answering questions with platitudes. He skipped some campaign events, leaving some to doubt how effective or dynamic he will be as a leader.
That was David Doe of Reuters reporting. Let's go to Abuja now, where VOA's Peter Claude is standing by with the latest election news. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Esther. How are you?
I'm good. How are Nigerians reacting to Tinubu's win?
Well, for APC supporters, they are agog. They are celebrating. They are in the principal street, hailing him, singing the anthem of APC, "In your mandate we shall stand." However, supporters of the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, and the Labour Party are furious. They are calling for INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to step down, saying that INEC did not follow its own guidelines leading to the elections, and that promises that were made were not kept. So they rejected the outcome of the elections. They say they are considering going to court to seek legal redress. So this is what is happening here in Lagos, in Abuja at the moment, Esther.
Peter, President-elect Tinubu has received the crucial certificate of return to affirm his victory. Why is this significant?
Well, it is significant because the certificate of return effectively makes Tinubu the winner of last Saturday's presidential election. And this is what he said he has been campaigning for. And he was declared winner of the election around 3 a.m. local time here in Nigeria. And then a few hours later, in the afternoon, he received the certificate of return from Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. So it makes him president-elect. And then after President Muhammad Buhari's full-year term ends this few weeks from now, he becomes the next president after he's sworn in, taking over from President Muhammad Buhari.
Peter, we had a couple of places where there was violence and chaos in Lagos and other places. Anything after the declaration of Tinubu as the winner?
For now, the situation has remained calm after Saturday's rancor in some parts of Lagos, where some shops were burnt down. In some places, including River State, there were violence. A few people died in Akwa Ibom, in Delta State. There were reports of pockets of violence, but the situation has calmed down now, although local media tell us that tension is pretty high, and they are calling on the authorities and the political leadership of all the political parties to do what they can to ease the tension in the country at the moment for those who are aggrieved to seek legal redress in court. So these are the calls by people, including civil society groups, to ensure that there's no further violence in any part of the country.
Peter, many thanks for your reporting. VOA's Peter Claude, live for us from Abuja, Nigeria. Now, for more insight into Nigeria's presidential election, I'm joined from London by Bulama Bukarti, a Nigerian human rights lawyer and senior analyst in the Extremism Policy Unit at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Mr. Bukarti, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
First of all, your reaction to Tinubu being declared winner and what a Tinubu presidency would mean for Nigerians.
I think Peter was apt. Many Nigerians are happy, many are disappointed, but the vast majority of Nigerians are just keeping their fingers crossed that the next 4 years will see an improvement in terms of security, infrastructure, and the economy. I think this is an important development in Nigeria's democracy. This is the first time, if successfully concluded, Nigeria will see 3 consecutive transition of power from one democratically elected administration to another. And it is the first time in the history of Nigeria that we are witnessing an election 7 consecutive times. So I think this is a major landmark, especially for Nigeria, but also a strong signal for other African countries that democracy needs to be consolidated in Africa.
Now, 2 other main candidates in this presidential race have said they will challenge Tinubu's win in court. What do you expect would be the outcome of this?
First, I want to commend the opponents for taking the legal route because taking extrajudicial or illegal routes by taking things into our hands do not augur well for countries. So I commend them for taking the legal route by seeking redress in court. I wouldn't want to preempt a process that is just beginning. The only thing I would say is that there are 5 grounds under Nigeria's electoral law for the challenge of an election. And what is likely to be alleged in this case is non-compliance. And what the law requires in this situation is for there to be substantial non-compliance with the Electoral Act, which has substantially affected the results of the election. So it is a very high threshold, but I would be keen to see the kind of case they would build and the kind of evidence they would bring forward.
Bulama, with INEC's criticism of, a flawed process in this presidential election, what do you think Nigerians are saying in terms of feeling that this election was free and fair? Is there credibility in this?
Look, there have been technical and logistical glitches in this election, and I think what happened was INEC overpromised and delivered, unfortunately, especially because they promised to use sophisticated technology in a country where a normal WhatsApp call does not go, hardly goes smoothly. And so there were these glitches, but overall, I would say what we have seen since 1999, when Nigeria came back to democracy, is an incremental progress in our democratic process. We have not seen in this election, for example, widespread cases of violence, which we were worried about before the process started. There were no widespread reports by international observers or by the media of corrupt practices in the elections. And so there is progress that are being made, and I hope INEC would learn lessons from this and try to improve future elections.
Mr. Bulama, thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bulama Bukarti is a Nigerian human rights lawyer and senior analyst in the Extremism Policy Unit at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. A coalition of more than 100 Nigerian leaders and organizations are urging the White House to grant Nigeria temporary protected status due to civil unrest in parts of the country. VOA's Kali Abdu spoke with members of the coalition.
Mr. Benga, can you tell us why this coalition has petitioned the Biden administration?
The reason why this coalition of 128 civil rights, humanitarian rights, immigrant rights organizations have asked the Biden administration to grant Nigeria TPS is because we are in a decade-long armed conflict in Nigeria. With the Boko Haram, terrorism, kidnapping. Nigeria is a great country, but the fact is we are in the most difficult chapters of our country's history. And because of this, there is a pathway that United States can immediately protect lives of Nigerians in America. And that's why we have asked this administration to immediately designate Nigeria for TPS, so we can save lives while the country gets itself in the right direction. Okay,
let's get Madam Lara to chime in on that. Madam Lara?
Yes, without a doubt, the essence of TPS is a temporary protection status. And Nigerians have been facing unrest, kidnapping, conflict, and all kinds of, stuff that destabilizes families and lives. For those who are here, we feel that they should not be demonized. They need the opportunity to contribute to the economy of the United States since they're already here, if granted the opportunity to do so. Just like other countries, Haiti, Ghana, Cameroon, Liberia, so many other countries that had a similar status. When you think about the Nigerian community, which I think we have become a household name right now, and we've been impacting our community in various stances. So immigration is one of those areas that we feel requires a reform. And this would be a good start for us to consider Nigerians for this status change and see how they can perform and become contributing members of America. It's a win-win for both countries. Okay. And I say that to also say that, there's proof when you talk about the Biden administration, that is proof that the Biden administration is well vested in building a relationship, especially given all these global initiatives about diversity, inclusion, and equity. So this is us advocating for equitable access for Nigerians who are stuck in this limbo.
Okay, thank you, Madam Lara. Now, Mr. Benga, what rights do immigrants have under TPS? Let's talk about TPS a little bit more. Give us a little understanding on that.
TPS is a temporary protection measure, and is usually designated for countries going through humanitarian crisis. I should establish it is not a pathway for naturalization. It's a protection, it's a temporary protection. And the types of rights they have includes opportunity for work authorization while they're here, opportunity to not be deported back to places of danger or unrest, humanitarian crisis. And while they are here, they get to have the opportunity to contribute, most importantly. I want to establish that we understand that this is not a right, it's a privilege. And as other countries have been afforded this privilege, we believe that Nigeria uniquely qualifies for this designation.
VOA's Kali Abdu speaking with members of the coalition seeking temporary protected status for Nigeria. Still to come, microfinance lending has been a game changer across Africa. We'll explain. Stay with us.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, as Nigerians await the outcome of their presidential election, we'll review Saturday's vote. Will voters and candidates accept the official outcome? Also, Russia's war in Ukraine enters a second year. What is Vladimir Putin's endgame? We'll have an interview with Lord Mark Malloch Brown from the Open Society Foundations. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, Rwandan refugees and asylum seekers in Mozambique are voicing concern on Wednesday at the ratification and extradition treaty between the two African countries, raising fears it will be used to persecute dissidents. Ivory Coast's Tunisia embassy is providing emergency accommodation for dozens of its citizens, including young children, made homeless due to a crackdown ordered by President Kais Saied. Landlords across Tunisia, fearing they will incur heavy fines for housing people without hard-to-obtain paperwork, have started evicting migrants. And officials in northwest Burkina Faso ordered dozens of informal gold mines shuttered over security concerns Wednesday as the region suffers an onslaught of jihadist violence. Authorities say they are closing 43 makeshift mines until further notice. French President Emmanuel Macron starts a four-nation tour of Central Africa on Wednesday in a diplomatic drive to test out a new security partnership with the continent as anti-French sentiment runs high in some former colonies. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
French President Emmanuel Macron says France's military bases in Africa will gradually be co-run with their host nations after Paris suffered a series of setbacks in its former sphere of influence. Macron said France's military would become less visible and the number of soldiers reduced to diffuse tensions in West Africa, where anti-French sentiment is rising.
The logic is that our model must not be based anymore on military bases like those we have now. So tomorrow, our military presence will be part of bases, schools and academics, which will be jointly managed, still operating with the French staff who remain, but with smaller individual and African teams, and who will be able to welcome, if our African partners want it, and in their terms, some other partners.
Macron called for opening a new era during his speech at the presidential palace, ahead of an ambitious trip on Wednesday to Gabon, Angola, the Republic of Congo, and the DRC. Macron acknowledged that Africa is now a field of competition and urged French businesses to wake up and get involved in the fight.
We thought that because we're France, even when we were doing wrong, even when we were more expensive than France, and even when financing solutions were not as good, we were continuing to be Emmanuel Macron's Africa's new era for France in Africa.
The tour comes just over a week after Burkina Faso booted out French troops and ended a military accord that allowed France to fight insurgents in the West African nation, becoming the latest African country to reject Paris's help. France withdrew its forces from Mali last year after the junta started working with Russian military contractors, the Wagner Group. Macron has previously sought to extend France's cooperation with English-speaking countries such as Ghana and Kenya, and increase French investments in Africa's private sector. During the trip, President Macron will focus on the environment, participate in a summit on forests in Gabon, and meet African artists. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
It's time for our technology report, and joining us now is our tech reporter, Paul Ndiho. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Esther. Microfinance lending has been a game changer across Africa, particularly for women and small and medium-sized enterprises. Zambia's Premier Credit, an international fintech company that operates as an online macro-lending investment platform in emerging markets in Southern Africa, is making a difference. I spoke to Chilufya Mutale, CEO and founder of Premier Credit in Kitwe, about her business. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Paul, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You are one of the rising stars in Zambia and across the region. You are on the verge of helping millions of women overcome what a lot of people call, maybe characterized as financial difficulties. You have created a platform for women and people who are economically disempowered to access finances. Bring us up to speed.
Premier Credit is an international financial technology company that is building the Pan-African Challenger Bank for small businesses in Africa. We know that 1.7 billion people across the world have no access to financial services, and 57% of the population in Africa is affected. This accounts for 95 million people who don't have access to a traditional bank account. This then affects 40 million SMEs who are facing a financing gap of $330 billion. This affects their operational efficiencies and their abilities to run their small businesses. Yet, these account for 80% of businesses in Africa and 60% of jobs. So Premier Credit was born to solve that problem, access to digital financial services to historically unbanked customers.
But most of these people that you're targeting don't even have access to some of the technologies that you're using.
Well, you would find that previously disadvantaged income groups don't have a lot of credit history, a lot of financial data that can be used to enable them access financial services from traditional lenders or commercial banks. So the advanced AI technology that we use is embedded in a USSD application where any person can access our service without even the need for internet infrastructure or an internet-enabled device. So they would simply dial our USSD code and access any of our financial services, even in the remote parts of the country.
What types of people come to you?
So we have a lot of people who are running small businesses, kiosks, marketeers, mainly women and the youth, entrepreneurs, people who are starting up their business ventures, looking to open up another grocery store, and also individuals who are low-income earners who are not on permanent employment but have some short fixed-term contracts and are not able to get financing from the commercial banks. Most of our customers basically are not able to meet bank requirements because they don't have the sufficient collateral to pledge as security on those facilities, but they have running businesses that have helped them to the stage where they are and are able to be backed by financing, but just don't have sufficient collateral to pledge as security for these loans.
When I was doing my research about you, and I managed to reach out to a few people who have benefited from this program, they describe you as somebody on mission to impact lives or to change a lot of lives in that region. How does that make you feel?
I feel happy and humbled at the same time that what we're doing is being recognized, is being appreciated, and most importantly, it's creating impact in every household that we are serving. What I believe is when every small business owner is empowered in every home, they have the ability to take their children to school, they have the ability to buy assets and create a future for their families.
There are a lot of people who have said that small loans to ordinary folks could be a game changer for a lot of people, but there are those who say that it comes at a cost. The interest rate sometimes is very high. Some people are unable to pay, and they end up losing some of what they have been able to do. Is that something that you have experienced, or is that something that you can respond to?
It's something that I've experienced personally. I've accessed financing that was very expensive, and that financing was available because in cases where you are not able to meet all requirements, basically you'd find a lot of loan sharks that are able to provide easy financing on the go without you producing the required information that a bank would simply ask for. So there are cases and there are circumstances where certain people have fallen into the debt trap because of the high interest rates. What will help businesses to lend affordably is to leverage off technology that reduces their operational costs and then helps them lend at affordable rates. That way, as they improve a small business owner, they are also collecting their monies, they're also growing as a business, enabling them to lend to other people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Chilufya Mutale, CEO and founder of Premier Credit in Kitwe, Zambia. That's today's Tech Report. Back to you, Esther.
And Paul, thanks. Be sure to catch Paul's Tech Report every Wednesday on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.
From around the world, let's go.